Welcome. My name is Lindsay Kandra, and I'm a mental health therapist that specializes in teaching the science and practice of mindfulness to help with the experiences of depression, anxiety, trauma, and PTSD. In this video, we're going to learn a little bit about how our brains work and why mindfulness practices are great for lessening the symptoms of anxiety and depression. It's a sneak peek of the content from the anonymous support group that I facilitate, Mindfulness for Depression and Anxiety. In that group, we spend a full hour going into the topic of mindfulness, and we practice several different mindfulness techniques. Before we get started, I want you to know that whatever you're feeling today is a normal reaction to what is going on in the world, and that you're definitely not alone. By opening yourself up to a different way of doing things, you've already taken the biggest and bravest step towards better mental health. So let's get started. I want to start by giving us a common language around mindfulness. Mindfulness is not about what you are doing, but how you are doing it. You're paying attention in a very particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Meditation is mindfulness, but there are a lot of other different types of mindfulness activities. I also want to give us a common language around anxiety and depression. Anxiety and depression are emotional issues, but they both have a physical or somatic component as well. Our bodies experience emotion, and emotion can actually get trapped in our bodies. Imagine a continuum of emotional imbalance. At one end is anxiety, with racing thoughts, chronic incessant worries, and physical agitation. At the other end is depression, with sluggish and negative thinking, lack of engagement in life, and physical lethargy and heaviness. Some people are experiencing life at the ends of this spectrum, with a lot more of us experiencing somewhere along that spectrum with all sorts of mixed symptoms. We can have a busy brain with physical lethargy or tiredness, and we can have a sluggish brain with a whole bunch of physical agitation. Because each of our experiences of mental health is different, the type of mindfulness that works best for you is also going to be different. This is why mindfulness requires curiosity, experimentation, and a lot of practice. I want to talk a little bit about brain structures, neuroplasticity, thought distortions, and mindfulness. This might seem like a lot, but I promise I'm going to tie it together at the end. The reason I want to start with the science is that knowing how our brains work is not only fun, but it can be really empowering. Understanding that anxiety and depression are conditions rooted in science rather than character flaws can be a huge boost for coping and healing. So on your screen here is a hand model of the brain. Our brain develops from bottom to top, back to front. The lower brain, the bottom of your hand there, is the brainstem, cerebellum, and spinal cord. This lower brain is a part of the brain that we share with all other animals. It's often called our reptilian brain or primitive brain, and this part of our brain is primarily concerned with safety and physical survival. It controls reflex and the fight, flight, or freeze response. It is also in charge of involuntary processes like breathing and sleep, digestion, circulation, metabolism, and reproductive drive. That thumb part of your brain that you pop out if you were to open your fist up is our midbrain or limbic brain, and it houses our primary centers of emotion. We share a lot of these brain structures with mammals, so dogs, cats, guinea pigs. Two key structures in this part of your brain are the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala is the brain's alarm system. With repeated exposure to crisis and stress, our alarm system can get stuck on. Our hippocampus plays an essential role in the formation of new memories about past experiences. Stress can damage the normal function of the hippocampus and interfere with its abilities to form memories or to store memories in the actual chronological order. The top part of our brain, the fingers that fold over the thumb, is the neocortex or higher brain. This part of our brain doesn't finish fully developing until we're in our mid to late 20s, and it's pretty unique to humans. It controls higher cognitive functions such as language, communication, math, logical thought, and voluntary movement. Neuroplasticity. This is a broad term for referring to the ability of your brain to reorganize itself, both physically and functionally throughout the course of your life. The concept of a changing brain has replaced a formerly held belief that the adult brain was pretty much a static organ that was permanently hardwired after critical developmental periods that ended in our 20s. I want you to think about your brain like a really complicated electrical circuit, because that's exactly what it is. Electricity wants to move along the path of least resistance. It's super efficient, but also a little lazy. And it's also pretty stubborn. This is why making change is hard. You're coming up against the rules of electricity and science at every turn. Anxiety and depression are a function of electricity moving throughout our brains. We can get anxious with too much electricity, or we can actually trigger our surge protector and shut down. This is often what depression looks like. I'd like to speak a little bit about thought distortions, and this is how thought distortions fit in. Our brain's number one job is to keep us alive. Think back to that brain model. The first thing to develop in the brain are the structures that keep us alive. And from an evolutionary perspective, avoiding negative experiences keeps us alive. Avoiding poisons, avoiding predators, avoiding extreme heat or cold. As a result, it is in our very nature as animals that our nervous systems flag negative experiences and velcro onto them. This is why it is so hard to identify positive experiences. We are hardwired to velcro onto negative experiences. This hardwiring leads to what therapists call thought distortions. Thought distortions mess with the way we interpret the world around us. Think of them as a dirty window between the outside world and how our mind makes stories about what is happening outside. We all experience thought distortions. We all have dirty windows messing with how we interpret the world around us. It's a natural byproduct of life experience, age, trauma, oppression, education, physical, and mental health. The next slide I have here is a list of common thought distortions. I'll be quiet for just a few moments, and I'll click on these one at a time and give you a chance to think about whether these thought distortions are impacting how you perceive your world. As promised, I'm going to tie all of these ideas together. Generally speaking, anxiety involves thought distortions about what may happen in the future. Depression involves thought distortions about what has already happened. So why mindfulness? Let's go back to that triune or fifth or three-part brain. We are often trying to outthink our thought distortions using the newest and youngest parts of our brain. Or we hope that a big cathartic release of emotion from our limbic system will be the thing that saves the day. This works for some of us, but not all of us, and it might not work all of the time. It makes sense that relying on the newer parts of our brain might not be enough. This is because many of our symptoms are body responses that originate in the older, instinctual, and automatic parts of our brain. Mindfulness is not about outthinking your symptoms or having a huge cathartic emotional release. Mindfulness is hacking into those older parts of our brain and using our body's own automatic systems to help us find emotional balance. This sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty easy. You don't need any fancy equipment or books or teachers. You can start right now where you are at, right here, right now. The common thread of the mindfulness activities that we are going to cover today and go into further depth in my anonymous group session is to expand our awareness beyond what is happening from the shoulders up in our heads and to find safe connection with the rest of our bodies. We'll be using the higher brain, the newer brain, to bring attention to the functions of the limbic and reptile brains. We can do this using breath, sensory awareness, responses to vibration, and rhythmic movement. The goal is to reset our brains and find emotional balance from the inside out instead of the top down. With mindfulness, it's not about what you are doing to be mindful, but how you are doing. Meditation is mindfulness, but so are so many other activities. Art, movement, exercise, writing, eating, cooking can all be mindful activities. Let's do a short mindfulness activity to give you a taste of what I'm talking about. I call it an arrival exercise because it's something that I try to do each time I sit down to work or to teach. All you have to do is follow along with my invitations. If checking in like this is really activating or uncomfortable, just sit back, listen, and shake it out. Tuning into our body experiences for the first time can be really uncomfortable for some, and it's okay if that's what happens for you. Watch for spontaneous deep breaths. Spontaneous deep breaths are our nervous system's natural way of finding balance. And if you find yourself taking a spontaneous deep breath, what you're doing might be something that really works for your body. We'll start by just finding a seat. So if you're slouching right now or sitting kind of crooked, I'll invite you to just place your feet on the ground, sit up straight. You can start with placing your hands gently in your lap. And what you'll be doing is just looking around the room, getting a sense of your external container. Where are your walls, windows, doors, the floor? What's your proximity to other people in your environment? What is your proximity to your screen? You can bring your attention back to center, and we'll shift our awareness to finding where we are grounded. So what are the things that are supporting us? You can start by sensing the floor underneath your feet. If it helps, you can press your feet into the floor for a little extra tension, a little extra support. You can transition your awareness to your backside where it makes contact with the floor or the chair. If it helps, you can also place your hands on the desk or the floor in front of you and lightly press into that surface for an additional sense of grounding. We'll now find our center. We'll get a sense of how we are in space, a sense of our own physical boundaries. You can place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Just feel your breath rise and fall. For some people, touching their midsection is really uncomfortable. If that's what you're experiencing, you can always do a little bit of self-massage on your extremities. You can rub your hands or rub your feet, rub your legs or arms. That might be more comfortable for you. And now I'll invite you just to notice your breath. We're not going to do anything to change it. Just want to notice how you're breathing. If it feels good, you can put your hands on the part of your chest where you feel your breath rise and fall. And if you'd like, you can transition to breathing in and out of your nose. All right, find your natural breath, sit up straight, shake it out a little bit. That is an arrival exercise. To close out this video, I'll invite you to contemplate the following questions. What did you sense in your body during that activity? What emotions did you experience? What thoughts did you have? Is it hard to distinguish between body sensations and emotions and thoughts? Remember, there is nothing good or bad, right or wrong about your experience. The magic is in the noticing. Thank you so much for joining me. If you found this helpful, join me and other licensed mental health professionals for Hims and Hers Anonymous Support Groups. What is an anonymous support group? It's the way Hims and Hers is working to bring high-quality mental health to more people. The support groups are free, and you'll be learning effective strategies for dealing with common concerns like sleeping, motivation, relationships, stress, and more. It's a totally private experience, which is a great way to experience with working with a mental health professional for the first time. You can use any name and participate only as much as it feels right for you. Many people in my sessions keep their video and audio off and just communicate me with the Zoom chat function. Go to forhims.com or forhers.com to explore the sessions and for more mental health products.